And for the 12th time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live. Pre-Thanksgiving. We are a couple days away from celebrating Thanksgiving, so we're going to talk about some Thanksgiving stuff, as well as some of the big stories from the past week, because that's what we do on here. We've got a lot of stories relating to specific Marvel movies. There's still some stories going around the controversy with Coyote versus Acme. We got some news on who's hosting the Academy Awards, and we're going to delve into some NFL stories, because we have some stuff to talk about, specifically the Deshaun Watson saga. A Fox Sideline reporter basically said she was lying about some of her comments she was making whenever she was on the sideline in 2008. We'll talk about that, if you don't know who it is already. We're also going to talk about the Buffalo Bills, as well as certain hometown team of mine that I knew this was going to happen, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But if you're new to this show, basically what we do here is like I said before, we run down all the big news stories from the past week in terms of entertainment, some sports, whatever, and some other topics I feel like I want to talk about on here. It's a free-form conversation recording session. We sit down for at least an hour. This is probably going to go over an hour, and talk about things that happened in the previous week. Now, this is more like an audio podcast, which means it's longer than my regular reviews, and it's also, for the most part, unedited, with a couple of exceptions here and there. But there is going to be some foul language too, so if you're not into that whole thing, you might want to back away from this. But with that said, sit back, relax, and if you're up to the challenge, let's begin the conversation. And as always on this show, we begin with a look at the weekend box office. A lot of new movies opening up this weekend. A lot of things to talk about, so let's go ahead and just get right to it. We'll start off with with at least one holdover. As well, not much of a big deal on this one. Five Nights at Freddy's, number 5, dropping down from 2, obviously, with the newer releases coming in. 61% drop-off from last week, $3.5 million, $132.6 million in total. $20 million this movie cost to make, so needless, like I said before, it's making its money back regardless. $271 million worldwide, so we don't really need to delve into that one too much, but let's get to number 4. The number 4 film this week, one of our first 3 new releases that we have here, and we have Eli Roth's Thanksgiving, which is the new horror film based off of the mock trailer from Grindhouse. It's actually the fourth film based off of the trailer from Grindhouse. Of course, the other 2 were Machete and Machete Kills, and also Hope with a Shotgun. And this one's kind of a weird one, because the trailers for this did not really make it look like a campy, over-the-top slasher film. The trailers for this sold this as like a serious, straightforward slasher film, and I thought that was going to be something that was going to hurt the film in the long run, but because I don't think, because when you look at these trailers, this does not look like something that was related to Grindhouse, honestly. And I really had to look at this and think, is this the same thing from the Grindhouse people? But this from Grindhouse, but evidently it kind of is, because the film did pretty well with critics. Overall, 83% Rotten Tomatoes, which is not that bad for a horror film. We've been getting some good horror movies the last couple of years, especially good holiday horror films. I mean, Krampus we had a couple years ago, and then Trick or Treat not too long ago. I mean, it's a pretty good idea. It's a pretty good time to make horror movies right now, depending on on who you are as a filmmaker as a whole. But the budget on this was $15 million. $10.2 million is not bad for this film at all. It's more than likely going to get next week because, of course, Thanksgiving, and then kind of peter off after that. But at this point, it's going to be making its money back no matter what. I mean, like I said, $15 million to make this. It's already at $12.6 million worldwide, so it's doing pretty well, all things considered. So no worries on this front whatsoever. But I don't know if I'm gonna check it out at any point in time, but maybe next year I'll probably check it out. But now we get to probably the most disappointing thing of the whole top 5. The number 3 movie was last week's number 1 movie, The Marvels. Now, let's just run down the numbers here. $10.2 million, dropping 78% from last week. Its total gross is up to $65 million. The worldwide gross for this is $161 million. Needless to say, this is bad. This is bad. This is bad for the MCU, and it's the worst drop-off for a Marvel film since Morbius. You had a bigger drop-off than Morbius did. that's depressing. And of course, this was I feel like this movie was kind of in a lose-lose situation because it was already getting backlash before the movie even came out. People didn't take to the first Captain Marvel film very well, at least on social media. But this thing was kind of dead on arrival. But if you actually go to see the film, it's actually not that bad. And I would go as far as to say it's better than Captain Marvel was, which was not a great film to begin with. But this film was at least having fun with some of its ideas to it. I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes it out to be. It's not even the worst movie, one of the worst movies of the year, honestly. But the damage was pretty much already done as soon as the social media word of mouth got into play. The marketing for this was not that great overall. And yeah, this thing's dead on arrival. This thing's probably not even going to make it close to $100 million domestically. This thing's going to crash and burn pretty quickly, unfortunately, which it's a shame because the movie wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. But unfortunately, this is a sad reality that we live in right now, unfortunately, with movies like this. I mean, these movies in general do not usually are not usually crowd pleasers. Like the first Wonder Woman was a big crowd pleasing movie. And then they ruined that with the second film, Wonder Woman 1984, which crashed and burned mostly because of the pandemic, and among other things. But yeah, the Marvels, this is not a good thing. This is not good that you're only making $65 million in 2 weeks for a movie in the MCU. Like I said, this thing's not going to hit $100 million. I'm willing to bet you, but domestically, when this is all said and done, this is pretty bad. So, yeah, so with that said, on to the number 2 film, and number 2 movie is Trolls Band Together, which brought in $30.6 million, bringing its total gross to, I guess from preview screenings that it had a couple of weeks ago, to $31.7 million. Now, this is very interesting because obviously Trolls World Tour, the last film that opened up, did not open in theaters worldwide because of the COVID pandemic, and thus because of that, this film did not do so well. That film did not do so well when it came out. In fact, let me see if it did open up in some theaters. I don't think it did, but let me take a look here and see. I guess it did open up in theaters, but it didn't have, like, Box Office Mojo doesn't report the numbers for it, but I didn't think it did that well overall. I think it made most of its money through the VOD sales and then eventually through Blu-ray home media sales, but I'm trying to look for the Deadline page here to see what they have to say about this, because I really don't know how DreamWorks is taking this overall. I mean, $30.6 million is not a bad opening. It's definitely down compared to the first Trolls movie, and considering that there hasn't been a big family film coming out until this film did. I'm on Deadline's page right now, and here's what they had to say about this. Trolls Band Together coming up strong with $30.6 million after a $9.3 million opening Friday and a $12.2 million Saturday. Let's take a moment to reflect on what a great opening this is for Universal, DreamWorks, and Trolls Band after the whole Trolls World Tour going PVOD noise. You remember before theaters closed, Universal made a decision to go day and date with the movie on POVD, which ultimately became a lone PVOD release. That didn't hurt Trolls one bit as audiences came back. There's something else that's amazing here with Trolls Band Together. Universal's fiercely dated this female-skewing movie before Disney's Thanksgiving-skewing girl animated musical movie Wish, which opens Wednesday to what is potentially $45 to $50 million over 5 days. We'll get to that in just a second, by the way. Is Universal out of their freaking minds? No, says one rival studio executive. If this was 7 years ago, you'd have to be worried about Disney, but with their brand rusting, you don't need to worry about them anymore. The notion is that 2 animated musical movies for girls can live in the holiday box office for the next month plus. The opening is off 35% from the original Trolls' $46 million opening. The threequel debut here is Heads and Tails Above Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which had a $12.4 million opening. That was because of the winter cold spell last year. Christmas was mushroomed near 15 times leg out to $185 million statewide. Needless to say, I don't think this is going to be in Puss in Boots territory, because Puss in Boots really was the only big animated film that came out for a number of weeks. But I don't like this idea that they're saying that Disney is a brand that's rusting. I don't know who exactly said this, but I think the reviews for Wish did not get out to the strongest word that I think Disney wants it to. But I think people are still going to go see that movie regardless, and I think that still is because that movie has so much going for it. It's the film celebrating the 100th anniversary of Disney. You're going to get to see the Once Upon a Studio short on the big screen, and the movie just looks like it could be really fun. And from the word of mouth I've heard about it, it's looking like it's going to be a big hit regardless. So, needless to say, I think this can open up and do maybe slightly better than Charles Band Together did, but I do like the idea that the notion is that two animated musical movies can live in the holiday box office for the next month plus, because after Wish comes out, there's really nothing for the kids until Wonka, and even then, I don't know how that one is going to do, honestly. Like, I feel like it's one I can't really get a full grasp on, honestly. They just had Timothée Chalamet start the push for it on Saturday Night Live when he hosted. But I'm not hearing a lot of good word of mouth about this film early on. But then again, it's still very early on. We still have to wait to see what happens there. But I guess this is okay for Trolls Band Together to do that type of business. And like I said, I don't think it's going to do Puss in Boots numbers where it just sticks around for the holiday season, but it should do well enough to at least get it back to somewhere the first film was. But I haven't gotten to see it yet, so I can't really say for certain if it's any good or not. But neither have I gotten to see the #1 film this week, which is The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which brought in $44 million. Much smaller than the regular Hunger Games films, but this is a prequel to the original Hunger Games, and this is coming almost 10 years after the last movie in the series, so it's not really a bad thing per se. Plus, this only has a budget of $100 million, and worldwide it's already brought in $99 million, so it's basically pretty much making its money back already, just on the worldwide grosses. But this film didn't do the worst overall in terms of reviews and all that. Like, the reviews for this were decent. It was about 61% on Rotten Tomatoes. Metacritic had it at 53. Cinema Score was a B+, which is not the greatest. It's actually the lowest of the series, but I mean, it's not doing bad business per se. It's just not getting the same type of buzz that this film would have gotten if it just came out just after the Hunger Games series ended, like what happened with the Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts series. But I got a feeling that this has got to be way better than Fantastic Beasts was, because Fantastic Beasts is a terrible, terrible trilogy, which I don't understand why that was a trilogy, but $44 million is not a bad thing for this movie, especially considering how low the budget is. They probably wanted more if the word of mouth had been a lot better, but I mean, it could be worse. It could honestly be worse than that. It'll just depend on what happens next week, because like I said, we got Wish coming out, which I think will probably be the #1 film. How much of that business is going to chalk up into the business of the Hunger Games and Trolls, as well as Ridley Scott's Napoleon, which that one's a mixed bag one as well. It's Apple's first move. It's one of Apple's first main movies that they're putting out with the studio. So I don't know exactly what a good opening for that film would be at, but the Warp Buzz might help in the long run. So not a bad start for the Hunger Games per se, but like I said, they probably wanted more from it. But considering that it's been almost 10 years since the last film, this really isn't that bad of an opening for that film. At least in my opinion, it isn't. A couple of other new releases that opened up. One of the big ones was Taika Waititi's Next Goal Wins, which did not do so well. Brought in $2.5 million, opening up in 1,400 in. I'm reading that wrong. I'm reading the per screen average. 2,240 theaters with a $1,116 screen average. Which I think that was the first problem per se with this film, is that you don't open the movie like this wide like that and expect to make money on the same weekend that a new Trolls movie and The Hunger Games is opening up. That was, I think, the first mistake from Disney. The second mistake from this, though critical word of mouth is not that great for this. I mean, Taika Waititi, everyone hates him now for some reason. I don't know why, because the guy still has been making some pretty decent stuff. Everyone thinks, oh, Thor: Love and Thunder was a terrible movie. Taika Waititi's done. Have you not watched Reservation Dogs on Hulu? Have you not watched What We Do in the Shadows? The guy is still putting out some pretty good stuff, guys. But I don't know. But like, I'm not ready to jump on the I hate Taika Waititi bandwagon yet. He still makes a lot of good stuff that I've actually really enjoyed. Like I said, What We Do in the Shadows, and also Reservation Dogs, and I like Thor: Love and Thunder, and I don't care what anybody says. Of course, he made Thor: Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit, 2 really great films. I do want to see this one, though. I did want to check this one out, because it did look like it could be kind of fun, but I think their big mistake was opening this wide and hoping that people would just go to see it because it was Taika Waititi. The budget on this is $14 million, which is not bad per se, but it's not a good number for this film, and this could probably backfire for it in the long run. But again, I want to see I want to see it, so I'm going to check it out at some point. And then opening in wide and limited release was Saltburn, which is Emily Fennell's new film after Promising Young Woman. $315,492 in 7 theaters for a $45,000 average per screen average. Not a bad start for that film per se. So, other than that, though, that's pretty much the entire weekend before Thanksgiving. So that's the weekend box office. Now let's get into some story time because we have a lot of stories to cover. So let's get to it. So one of the big early news stories that came out in the week that kind of relates to the weekend box office with the Marvels continuing to crash and burn and Marvel pretty much trying to figure out how the hell it's trying to get back on track. They've already started making some notable changes. We talked a couple weeks ago about some movies being shifted off to other release dates, and now this past week it was announced that Shang-Chi director Destin Daniel Cretton has exited Marvel's Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, but he's not out of the MCU just yet. This is a story that comes from Marvel. Director Destin Daniel Cretton, I think it's Cretton or Cretton, either one. I'm going to say Cretton, has departed Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, an upcoming superhero adventure in Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe. Kang Dynasty, which is positioned as an Avengers Infinity War style penultimate team-up of this current Marvel era, which was recently delayed, is now scheduled to open until May 1st, 2026. It will be succeeded by Avengers Secret Wars on May 7th, 2027, which will conclude this stretch known as the Multiverse Saga of the long-running interconnected franchise. Beyond its director, the state of Kang Dynasty has been a subject of speculation. Jonathan Majors has already played multiple versions of the titular supervillain Kang on the Disney Plus series Loki, and in this February's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But the actor's future with Marvel has been a question mark because he currently awaits trial for domestic abuse charges. Unlike the two-part saga of Infinity War and Endgame, which were filmed and directed back-to-back by Anthony and Joe Russo, Cretton was only hired to direct the Kang Dynasty. There is no director on board for Secret Wars either. Cretton isn't permanently parting ways with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He remains on board to direct the sequel to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. He's also currently working on the Disney Plus series Wonder Man from Marvel Studios. The TV series for which Cretton served as director and executive producer was shut down before the strikes, but soon will resume filming. Though unrelated, Cretton's departure comes as Marvel, a once untouchable film franchise with a combined $30 billion across 32 films, have been showing signs of mortality. The Marvels, they talked about the worst debut in MCU history. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was a smash with $845 million globally, but Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania became one of the rare Marvel movies to lose a lot of money in its theatrical run. These uneven performances point to a future where Marvel can no longer throw just any superhero adventure on the big screen and expect a blockbuster smash in return. So basically, we're kind of going back to where we've been talking about before, about how things have got to change in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I think they're slowly but surely starting to take that change over, because not too long before this, we had news that Jeff Loveness, the writer of this film, was out of the project as well. So basically, it looks like they're starting from scratch again. Does this mean that Kang is going to stick around? Now, that's the big question I think everyone's been talking about with this film. Does Kang come back in this? Can you continue to do that? Can you continue to wait out and see if Jonathan Majors is able to come back and play this character, or do you have to start from scratch all over again? And really, nobody really knows for certain what's going on here. Like, nobody really knows where this is going to go from here until they figure out what's going on in that court case, because I think that court case basically is going to depend on A, if this guy's going to have a future in Hollywood, or B, if this is going to have to be the way it is, or just have somebody else come in and play Kang the Conqueror. I mean, it's not impossible to get somebody else to play the character and keep this going, but I mean, they can't really wait too much longer to find out what's going on here, because they're supposed to start shooting this in next year. They're supposed to have to start shooting this next year to have it out by 2026. And depending on what happens here, I really don't think that this is going to be the same movie that we're thinking of when they first announced this. I wouldn't be surprised if they drop the Kang story altogether, if this court case and these abuse charges go to another level, and basically we'd have to start from scratch again. Like, right now it's looking less and less likely we're going to see the Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars in 2026 or 2027. I think they're going to have to figure out what to do at this point on, because we're already seeing starting the changes coming into place with now Deadpool 3 now being the only new release coming from the MCU in 2024, and then Captain America Brave New World will wrap up Phase 5 in 2025, the start of 25, and then the next phase after that becomes Phase 6, which will be Fantastic Four. Yeah, Fantastic Four, then Thunderbolts, then Blade, and then you're supposed to get to the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. I wouldn't be surprised if if some things needed to be changed from that, and I think we're going to see projects that don't have release dates as of right now becoming films that will replace those films. We still have an Armor Wars movie that's still in development. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings has a sequel that's still coming. We also have a Spider-Man No Way Home sequel that's going to be coming pretty soon. I think they're starting to work on that as well. And then let's not forget, they're going to bring the X-Men into this at some point, so it would really be surprising if if Avengers: The Kang Dynasty and Avengers: Secret War end up getting pushed back, and one of those four films I mentioned goes into that place there to take those places up, because I think those films will move further along in production. And as long as that case is still going on with Jonathan Majors, good chances we're probably not going to see the Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars in 2026 or 2027. Like I said, Marvel's still trying to figure out how to get back on track here, and I don't think they're going to get I think we're going to see a lot more changes before we actually see more projects coming out of the woodwork here pretty soon. So, again, we'll wait to see what happens there. Let's go ahead and move on to our next story. I mentioned one of those movies coming up in the MCU was the Fantastic Four. Well, this week we finally got a little bit of some news about potential casting. Now, this is not officially confirmed as of yet, but it's looking like it's going to get closer. It's closer to being done than we expect. But Variety reports the story that Pedro Pascal has been eyed to play Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four. Marvel Studios' Fantastic Four, which will bring one of the most well-known superhero teams into all of comics into the MCU, is zeroing in on one of its main leads. Pedro Pascal is currently being eyed to play Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, a brilliant scientist who gains the ability to bend and stretch his body like rubber following exposure to gamma rays during a scientific expedition to outer space. The role would continue Pascal's hot streak of iconic characters. His career first took off with his memorable turn as Prince Oberyn Martell on Game of Thrones, and then hit a new height when he was cast as the titular bounty hunter on The Mandalorian, the first Star Wars TV inaugural series for Disney+. The 48-year-old actor was recently nominated for an Emmy for his performance on the ongoing HBO series The Last of Us. WandaVision director Matt Shankman will helm Fantastic Four. He took over from John Watts, who directed all three of Marvel and Sony's Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland after Watts exited the film. Fantastic Four is scheduled to open on May 2nd, 2025. Of course, this wouldn't be the first time the Fantastic Four was in the MCU. They were in Doctor Strange. John Krasinski played Reed Richards in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And along with Susan Storm, casting for the other two main characters in the title quartet have yet to be announced. So, there's been a lot of mixed reception to Pedro Pascal playing this role. I personally don't think it's that bad of a choice. Probably not the first choice I would have gone with. I mean, if I'm being honest, I probably would have liked to see John Krasinski play Mr. Fantastic in a real Fantastic Four movie. But I mean, this isn't a bad choice at all, really. I think it is a decent choice. Like, I know a lot of people don't like the choice because they. I'm trying to figure out why they don't like this choice, because it goes back and forth. Like, some people say that he's getting involved with Marvel because of the money they're paying him. And I'm reading another story here where basically Kevin Feige reportedly feared the cast was too white before Pedro Pascal came into the picture. That came from Yahoo, and it's just let me see if I can find the story here. Yeah, you got people on social media talking about how Pedro Pascal is snatching roles in every single franchise in Hollywood, and they have a picture of somebody just eating a thing of breakfast like crazy, like it's like when Chris Pratt got Super Mario and then also Garfield as well. And then here's another tweet right here. Pedro Pascal reading that Reed Richards is reluctantly tasked with protecting a special child and getting them to a safe location in the Fantastic Four script. And you got somebody laughing over this. And then, I'm looking at these different things right here, and I really don't see a legitimate reason why people keep snapping at this idea of Reed Richards playing Pedro Pascal, because it's mostly because he's in every single movie, he's doing everything now. He's in The Last of Us, he's in The Mandalorian, he's in Game of Thrones. Okay, so what? He's a hot commodity, and why wouldn't you want to be in the MCU at this point? It's usually going to make money. You're in a series that's people are very excited to finally see what the Fantastic Four would be like with a legitimately good film, and not those terrible movies from the 2000s. Like, everyone now wants to praise them now as, which makes no sense to me. But I really don't see the problem with this casting whatsoever. Like, I don't think this is bad casting at all. I think it's good. I think it's a decent casting. It's not the one I would have went for. Like I said, I would have gone with somebody like, John Krasinski. There's been some other names in particular that they've been looking at for other characters, like Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm is somebody that I would actually really like to see. Like, I like her in the Mission Impossible movies. I liked her in Hobbs and Shaw. I think she's a really great actress. I really do want to see her. I'd like to see her take that role. I think that's great casting there. Some other casting considerations, possibly Javier Bardem as Galactus, which honestly wouldn't be too bad in particular. I think that wouldn't be a bad choice. Johnny Storm is a tough one. Like, Johnny Storm, I don't know for certain who I would pick for that. Some people are saying that Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things is considered an option. He also has a role in Gladiator 2 with Pedro Pascal, as well as the Quiet Place prequel, A Quiet Place Day 1 with Lupita Nyong'o. This, I think it could be pretty good too. Eben Moss-Baccarat playing Ben Grimm. I think that's actually a pretty cool. I think that would actually be kind of fun. I like him I've seen him on The Bear. He was just in No Hard Feelings this past summer. He's actually a pretty funny guy on screen. Pretty funny guy on screen, a pretty cool guy in general, but I think he could actually make the role of Ben Grimm pretty interesting. I think that would be very good to see him handle that. I don't really have a list in particular here of who I would cast in these roles, but like I said, Pedro Pascal is not a bad choice for Mr. Fantastic. I like the idea of Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. I like Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm's not a bad idea. And I do like the idea of Eben Moss-Baccarat as Ben Grimm. I think that'd be my Fantastic Four personally, but again, we'll have to wait to see what happens here. But like I said, it's got to be better than the 2000s movies. I mean, those movies they just aren't that good. They just are not that good, man. They are not that good films, despite the fact they have decent casting in them. But they're just not good films overall. So we'll wait to see what happens there. So that's some Marvel news. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on over at Warner Brothers. So last week we talked about Coyote versus Acme and how Warner Brothers basically canceled the project and decided to make it a $30 million tax write-off because they didn't want to sell the film, and everybody got so upset about it. And then by Monday, Warner Brothers changed their mind and said that they're going to let the filmmakers take the movie out to Netflix, to Amazon Prime Video, to Apple TV, and to all the other places to see the film and see if they want to buy it. And the praise coming out of the film has been very good. Some people are calling it the best version of Looney Tunes on screen. Phil Lord and Chris Miller praised the film like crazy, and so that should pretty much tell you everything you need to know about how this movie has basically cut down Warner Brothers, cut down David Zaslav's power, because basically, apparently there was a lot of things going on with the decision to cancel the film, and how it basically just completely ruined Warner Brothers, basically in terms of some of the things that they were doing. Because not too long after they said that we're going to put the film out there, there was basically some news about. It started off on social media coming about how the reason why Warner Brothers decided to uncancel the film mostly came from the fact that people were backing away from Warner Brothers after this. Let me see if I can find the story here. So basically what happened on Monday when this was announced, Hollywood Reporter basically said that according to sources, after the Coyote versus Acme cancellation news broke, several filmmakers instructed reps to cancel meetings that they had on the books with Warner Brothers Discovery. So they were literally losing interviews with people. Brian Duffield, who just directed No One Will Save You, which is a brilliant film, by the way. If you haven't checked that one out, definitely do that. But yeah, he went off on this. He basically said, let me see if I can find the thing here. Basically, he said, I don't know how you see this movie and then go, that couldn't happen to me. Brian Duffield, the filmmaker behind the Hulu sleeper hit No One Will Save You. Duffield was not involved in Coyote vs. Acme, but is friends with the director David Green and gave notes on the film. Part of Duffield's frustration, he says, was that Green delivered everything that was asked of him. He delivered the film, which sources say cost $72 billion on budget. He hit the right test scores. He even moved away from his friends and family to London for 18 months to save the studio money on post-production costs. All this only to see his film go run off a cliff. Duffield believes that Coyote can make money, certainly more than the tax write-off. I think Coyote is very similar to Barbie in a lot of ways. They're playing with iconography. Let me see. I'm having trouble saying this word. Iconography. 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 They are playing with iconography in a really fun popcorn kind of way. Veteran film executives acknowledge that shelving the film as a tax write-off and to avoid distribution and marketing costs can make an earnings quarter look better, but it can be short-sighted from a studio in the business of building franchises and a slate. The decisions following the industry taking a hard turn from a streaming boom golden age that saw studios shelling out unprecedented billions on content, particularly titles related to a familiar IP, like Coyote vs. Acme. Some say Warner's bottom line ruthlessness are less of a new way of mistreating talent than a return to Hollywood used to be. The idea that there's the little window where a lot of people got to try a lot of stuff they wouldn't have gotten to try in normal circumstances. That's the anomaly, one top writer-producer said. The kind of red tooth and claw version of conducting business, the nastiness, I think that's the norm. Still, it's easy to imagine that an in-demand creative has had another, all things being equal, choice of going with Warner's or another studio in the future. Zaslav's aggressive tax strategies could give real pause, even with a reversal. Zaslav previously reversed an unpopular decision, the gunning of Turner Classic Movies, after an outcry from creatives including Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, and Paul Thomas Anderson. Basically everything we've been saying since this dude took charge of Warner Brothers. This guy is a friggin' monster. And he may be in serious trouble because not but a day after this story popped up on the Hollywood Reporter. A congressman is calling for a federal investigation of Warner Brothers for its handling of Coyote vs. Acme. Texas Representative Joaquin Castro took to Twitter to blast the studio for its original plans to shelve the movie for a tax break. The WBD tactic of scrapping fully made films for tax breaks is predatory and anti-competitive, the San Antonio Democrat wrote. As the Justice Department and FTC revise their antitrust guidelines, they should review this conduct. As someone remarked, it's like burning down a building for the insurance money. Castro has been vocal of antitrust issues in media and entertainment. In April, he called the competition in 4Cs to reassess Discovery's merger with AT&T's Warner Media. This followed 30 members of Congress warning that the resulting competition vacuum would harm workers and consumers, as well as reduce diverse programming, which became a common criticism after the company canned its $90 million HBO Max film Batgirl, the first DC movie led by a Latina, for the tax write-off. In a letter to the Justice Department, Castro previously wrote the deals that enabled Warner Bros. Discovery to adapt potentially anti-competitive practices, including project cancellations. The damage to content creators whose projects are canceled in deep development and post-production cannot be overstated. Such cancellations stain these projects, making them less appealing and marketable to other buyers. Consumers will likely need to be able to never be able to watch shows purchased by then canceled by WBD. WBD's conduct amounts to a de facto catch-and-kill practice, vastly limiting consumer choice. Under current merger guidelines, a consideration of whether a deal is approved is if it will incentivize a company to withdraw a product that a significant number of customers strongly prefer. Castro, in his comments over the shelving of Coyote vs. Acme, could be alluding to the absence of competition in Hollywood that allows Warner Bros. Discovery to make unpopular moves without harm to its bottom line. The call for an investigation is the latest twist in the almost cartoon-like saga of the live-action animated hybrid Coyote vs. Acme, which went from just another title on Warner's slate to the most talked-about movie in Hollywood, thanks to the studio's initial effort to scrap the project. Unlike Batgirl, however, Coyote vs. Acme is entirely finished and has a successful audience screening where its test scores were in the 90s. Supporters of the project applied pressure to the studios to change last week's decision, with some creators even canceling meetings with the company in protest. They quote Brian Duffield's thing again. And so basically, this dude is David Zaslav's stupidity as the head of Warner Brothers could get him into serious trouble if the actual investigation is into this. But bottom line here is that it's been an interesting week for Coyote vs. Acme. You went from being a shell project to now you're going out there to be sold to another studio, and the guy that canned your project and was going to write it off as a tax write-off could face serious consequences for this. One would hope, but again, we will wait to see what happens on that front. We still have a long way to go here, and I'm still waiting to see who's going to pick this one up. I talked about it in the update video that I think that Amazon probably is the best place for it to go to, since it has a couple of other Warner Brothers projects. In fact, some people who actually greenlit this project now work over at Amazon, so I think that could be a match made in heaven for there. So, again, we will wait to see what happens on that front. But with that said, let us move on to our next story. Nothing too crazy here for this next bit of story I've got here. It's actually two stories. Basically, first off, the Golden Globes, which was on NBC for a long period of time before NBC and before the controversy with the Golden Globe Awards shut down, and so now it's moving over to CBS on January 7th. So nothing too crazy on that front there. Nothing too spectacular there. And nothing too spectacular about this other story I've got here, which is that they have a host for the 96th Annual Academy Awards. And not surprisingly, it's going to be Jimmy Kimmel again. It's his fourth time in the role. It's hardly surprising because of the long-standing relationship he has with Disney. And honestly, some people are so mixed on Jimmy Kimmel, honestly, but I think he's a perfect host for the Oscars. I think he's the guy that knows exactly what to do to be the Oscar host that the Oscars need. Like, we don't need to have the Oscars be this thing where you bring in these multiple hosts and they have to do these like, the biggest problem I think the Academy Awards has when it comes to the hosting abilities of people is that they try to get the stars to do them, and you don't have the writing team to actually make it work. Like the year that James Franco and Anne Hathaway hosted the Oscars, two great actors, just bad choices because they didn't have good writers to give them good jokes to work with. And even what they did a couple years ago with what was it, Wanda Sykes, Amy Schumer, and I think Regina King, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was either Regina King or Regina Hall. Let me check one quick. It was Regina Hall. It was Regina Hall, not Regina King. Like, even in that year, they really were not that funny, and mostly because I don't think they could work with the same material that a guy who's known in late night to work with material like the monologues and all that, like a guy like Jimmy Kimmel or somebody like the long-standing Oscar hosts that have been there in the past, like Bob Hope, Johnny Carson, Steve Martin, Whoopi Goldberg, Billy Crystal. I mean, they had great writers to give them good material, and Jimmy Kimmel works with actors so well. I think that this is not surprising that he took this again, and it's not a bad thing, honestly. I mean, the last time he did it, he was pretty much well done, well on his way. He pretty much did a very good job with the material given to him. Nobody's expecting Jimmy Kimmel to really be like, to go be one of the great hosts ever. You just got to be a guy that's able to work with the actors, able to work with some good bits of comedy, and he does it pretty well here. I think he does a pretty good job of handling that. And I think it's not a bad thing that he's coming back to do the Oscars again. I mean, it's not, at least in my opinion, it isn't. But that happens on March 10th this year, and now that the actor strike is over, it will happen this year. So let's hope that the Oscars can be like they were this past year, and not go back to years before where they just pick the most generic clickbaity Oscar baity movies out there. But I digress. So let's go ahead and step away from the world of entertainment for a little bit and talk about some of the things going on in the NFL, because there was a lot of interesting stories that came out of the NFL this week. And I think it's time that we have a discussion about the Buffalo Bills. I mean, the Buffalo Bills, honestly, like, I know right now as I'm recording this, they're actually playing the New York Jets right now and beating them convincingly 16-0 as of the time of recording this. But again, it's the New York Jets. The New York Jets are not as good as everyone makes them out to be. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody's trying to say about how, Aaron Rodgers is going to come back in December when they make the playoff push. They're not making a playoff push, and they haven't had a touchdown in 36-plus drives. Like, they're not doing that. Sorry, I don't know what else to tell you about that, but I digress. But the Buffalo Bills, yeah, they're doing good right now. They weren't doing good on Monday night against the Denver Broncos. I think a lot of us can agree there ain't no goddamn reason why the Denver Broncos should have won that game against Buffalo the way they did. I mean, Buffalo just fell apart right from the get-go. I mean, they are not the same Buffalo Bills that they were at the start of the season. Not even the start of the season, the last couple of years, when they were so close to getting to the AFC Championship game, getting to a Super Bowl, and they just couldn't get past the Kansas City Chiefs or the Cincinnati Bengals in general. But honestly, when you look back at that game on Monday night, I think a lot of people were very stunned at how that game turned out, because the Buffalo Bills should have came in there and should have made it more of a game than they actually did. I mean, but I'll give them this, though. The Denver Broncos, we made fun of them last year for what they for basically just kind of like falling apart, is having one of the worst teams possible with Nathaniel Hackett as the head coach. But man, they have indeed turned that around big time. I mean, they have indeed turned it around. Like, they didn't look like that at the beginning of the season, but to have a game like that and to do some of the things that they were able to do in that game and find a way to win that game, like, I was really surprised at how they were able to do it. Like most notably, the first half, at the end of the first half, and then the last minute and then the last game-winning field goal drive. Like, to do that fire drill thing where you spike the ball and you have no timeouts and you basically have to just run, get the field goal team in place. Not only did they have that work once, they had that work twice in that game. And in critical moments like that, when I saw them do that, I thought, oh, here they go. They're gonna find a way to mess it up. It's the Denver Broncos. Of course, they're gonna find a way to mess it up, and succeeded the first time. And then the only reason they got it the second time was because of the 12 men on the field penalty by Buffalo, which, I gotta say, man, some of you people out there, like you did not have to go as far as you did when you saw that Damar Hamlin was the 12th man on there. I remember going on to Twitter that night and seeing somebody put up a clip from Brothers, basically talking about how Damar Hamlin was the 12th guy on the field, and now people should not be happy about this. And basically, somebody put up a clip from the movie Brothers, and it's the part where the little girl is basically telling her father, Ghetto Gronk is the person that put this out here. He basically said, Bills fans realizing Damar Hamlin was the 12th man on the field. And like I said, it takes a clip from the movie Brothers. And basically the little girl is saying, why didn't you just stay dead? I've got it right here. Listen. I mean, that's really harsh. I mean, say what you will about the penalty, but to go that far and to say Damar Hamlin deserved that, like, dude, it's not his fault. Like, the Buffalo Bills shouldn't even be in that situation. If you know how they get out of that situation, actually playing up to their level of potential that they have, instead of just letting the Denver Broncos run all over them throughout the course of the game and causing so many turnovers. I mean, they lost that game because of Josh Allen and the way the Buffalo Bills handled that. It wasn't just because of that 12-man play, like 12-man on the field penalty. Like, there's so many problems with the Buffalo Bills in that game that it wasn't just because of that they lost the game. And, like, kudos to Sean Payton for really turning the Broncos around in that game, because really that was the game I think everybody kind of was just like, let's see how this goes. Let's see what happens as we get later on down the season. For a team that got blown out 70 points by the Miami Dolphins to go into that game, it's just like it's something really incredible. I got to give them a lot of credit for that. But that was, of course, not the only big story that happened in terms of the NFL. Let's talk about what's happening with Deshaun Watson. So yeah, Deshaun Watson. Let's talk about his status right now, because remember, folks, this is the guy that the Cleveland Browns gave up 3 first-round picks for and gave him a $250 million guaranteed contract before he even stepped on the football field. And, by the way, he had an 11-game suspension to start last year. And, he's been okay the last couple of weeks into 2022 and as well as the start of 2023. But now, guess what happens now, kiddies? Deshaun Watson is out for the season. So, I think it's safe to say now that the entire the trade for Deshaun Watson and giving them that contract is one of the worst trades in NFL history. I heard some people saying that, Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos still have a bad trading right now, but the Denver Broncos are playing good football right now, and they're actually getting better as the season goes along here. I don't know if that's going to amount to them making the playoffs or anything, deep playoff runs, but certainly is a lot better than where they were last year. But they are in a much better place right now than the Cleveland Browns were with Deshaun Watson. Like even when teams were asking for those 3 first-round picks, and someone said the Steelers should definitely do that, there's no way the Steelers are giving up 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I mean, we'll take anybody else right now at quarterback besides giving somebody 3 first-round picks for them, although today was not an exception. We'll get to that in just a second. But, it kind of goes into my point here about Deshaun Watson, is that the guy really is not that good of a quarterback. I mean, the Browns are not playing good football now because of Deshaun Watson. Everyone was talking about how, well, Deshaun Watson, you need to have him in there or else he doesn't win you games and all that. Well, yeah, Nick Chubb is out, but their running back core is still pretty good. I mean, Joe Form has really become a good replacement for Nick Chubb, and Kareem Hunt has been in that system long enough to know how to keep the running game going in there. Excuse me. The Browns still have one of the best defenses ever, one of the best defensive players on field in Myles Garrett. Yeah. The Browns are sadly going to be just fine. I say sadly because of the fact that I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I live in Pittsburgh, so we kind of have to hate the Browns for that. But I'm sorry to tell you this, but the Browns are not going to be the same Browns that you think they're going to be. Like, yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson and P.J. Walker are not Deshaun Watson, but you know what? At least with P.J. Walker, they played better with him under center than Deshaun Watson did this season. I mean, you don't win that game against the Colts with a guy like P.J. Walker playing his butt off like that. But, kind of exactly what I thought was going to happen when they announced on Wednesday that Dorian Thompson-Robinson was going to start against Pittsburgh over P.J. Walker. I just had this thought to myself, they know something. They know what's going to happen here. And sure enough, let's talk about the game that happened today, because what a shocker. What I thought was going to happen was going to happen. Dorian Thompson-Robinson wasn't going to do jack shit except for make a couple of lucky throws and just let the defense and the running game take control of that game. And the Steelers look completely helpless. They looked absolutely horrible. This has been their MO all season long. They've been winning games with this stupid strategy of playing horribly in the first 3 quarters and then just suddenly coming to life in the fourth quarter. Well, guess what? Cleveland wasn't having any of that, and guess what happened today? Even when the Steelers got the chance to finally do what they do in the fourth quarter, guess what happened? They let the Cleveland Browns win. The offense looked horrible. The defense did a decent job of keeping it to just a 10-point game for much of the game. But I'm sorry, you cannot be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Be in a game where if you win, you've pretty much got a cakewalk to the playoffs at 7-3. And you cannot let the Cleveland Browns come in and beat you like that, because now the Cleveland Browns have a cakewalk to the playoffs with a backup quarterback that's much better than Deshaun Watson, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be screwed for the rest of the season because they're not going to get out of this mentality, and it's all going to start cratering down. Like, they don't care about winning. The Steelers do not care about winning football games like any other NFL team. They just want to get to that 9-win credenza and then just say, well, at least Mike Tomlin got his 9 wins. I mean, that's all that matters to this team. And that's the problem. This team is still stuck in 2005 where they think that, oh, if we're just lucky, we'll find a way into the playoffs and we'll find our way into the Super Bowl because of the lackluster talents that we have in front of us. I mean, we have to go into Cincinnati and beat Carson Palmer. We have to go into Indianapolis and beat Peyton Manning. We have to go into Denver and beat Jake Plummer. We got to beat Matt Hasselbeck to be in the Super Bowl is against Seattle. It doesn't work that way anymore. The AFC has Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, who's in your division. Yeah, Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow aren't playing this year, but you know what? They're still going to find ways to beat your sorry asses. You don't think you would think that the Steelers would have been keen on shutting down Cleveland this week to stop them from getting any momentum in the playoffs, and all they did was basically cemented the Cleveland Browns a spot in the playoffs, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to fall off because they're not going to beat Cincinnati next week because they're going to feel like it's the same thing. Well, it's lucky enough that we don't have to play Joe Burrow for the next two times we meet them. Who's this Logan Browning guy? Surely he's not going to do anything important. Yeah, the Steelers are literally going to be 6-5 when they get back for the Arizona game, and even then, like they're so stuck in the past. That's the biggest problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, is because they're stuck in the past. They have terrible coaches on the offensive front. Like, why are we still keeping Matt Canada around here? Oh, you kept him on the sidelines during three critical games, and you won two of the three of them. Yeah, you were playing Tennessee with a backup quarterback. You were playing Green Bay, who was not looking like a good football team this year, and you were playing a Cleveland Browns team who was looking for revenge for what you did to them in week 2. Like, what did you think was going to happen? And it gets worse when you hear the stuff from after the game. Like, Mike Tomlin, after this game, pretty much said, well, that went as well as that went about what we thought we were going to be like. It's just like, he's literally telling people that this is exactly what they wanted from this. Like, Mike Tomlin doesn't care anymore. He doesn't care anymore. And on top of that, Kenny Pickett basically said, oh, we were surprised by the game plan by the Cleveland Browns. We got to adjust better. You've been trying to adjust better all season long, and you haven't done shit to warrant that. Like, oh my God. Like, I didn't want to go after Kenny Pickett because I don't hate Kenny Pickett. I just want him to get a real offensive coordinator to show everybody what he can do. But Matt Canada, there is absolutely no reason why this son of a bitch is still the offensive coordinator for this fucking team. There's none. Buffalo just got rid of their offensive coordinator last week. Don't tell me that the Pittsburgh Steelers can't do the same thing with their offensive coordinator. The Baltimore Ravens got rid of their offensive coordinator midway through the 2012 season. And guess what happened? They won the Super Bowl because of that. There's absolutely no excuse why this team continues to just keep shooting itself in the foot over and over and over again. And now the players are getting sick and tired of this as well, which I hope is finally the wake-up call that this team needs to get rid of Matt Canada and start anew all over again. But no, it's not going to be that way, because that's not how the Steelers roll. They would rather see the Cleveland Browns win this game and say that it's their Super Bowl. Well, you know what? They may literally make the Super Bowl while you'll be sitting there in January contemplating what went wrong. Like, why aren't we in the playoffs right now? I'm so sick and tired of this freaking team. This happens every single season. They get your hopes up so high, and then when it matters the most, it just goes kaput. Like, 3 of the last 4 years have been notorious December collapses. 2018, they just come off a big win against Jacksonville. They lose to Denver, a terrible football team in 2018. They lose to the Chargers at home on a Sunday night after having a double-digit lead. They lost to the Raiders, who had only 1 win at that point in that season. They beat New England. They lose to the Saints. They beat the Bengals, and meanwhile, Tom Brady wins another Super Bowl even after that game, because that's the last loss they ever took that year. 2019, they're sitting there at I think 8-5 after the win against the Cardinals. Buffalo beats them. The Jets beat them. The Jets with Sam Darnold and Adam Gase as the coach, by the way, and then Baltimore with backup Robert Griffin III in there. Lost that. Missed the chance to go to the playoffs. 2020. 11-0 start. Washington comes to town and completely exposes them. They lose to Washington. They lose to Buffalo. They lose to Ryan fucking Finley in Cincinnati. They beat the Colts barely because Phil Rivers collapsed on his own crap. They lost to Cleveland to get them into the playoffs, and then the next week they completely dismantled them at home in the wild card game. Another loss. They make the playoffs in 2021, get a touchdown on Kansas City, never get another touchdown afterward. 2022, almost had a chance to make the playoffs, but heaven forbid that Miami needs to get in there because Tua Tagovailoa isn't there, but screw it, they have the better record. Like, it's going to happen again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to say this. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I can, but it's going to happen again. The Steelers are not making the playoffs this year. They're a huge disappointment. I'm not ready to say it's Kenny Pickett's fault because I need to see what he does with a real offensive coordinator, not some guy who got Mike Tomlin's son what do you call it? A chance to play on the college football team in Maryland, because that's literally that's the only reason I can think of why he's still there. That has to be the reason. There's no other reason why this team is still forced to have this guy on the sideline instead of getting a real offensive coordinator to help Kenny Pickett out. There's absolutely no reason this team should be as bad as they are right now. It is inexcusable. Inexcusable whatsoever. And it's going to happen again on Sunday. I'm telling you right now, when I get back here on Sunday, after the Steelers lose to Logan freaking Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to be the first to tell you, I told you so. And you know what? I don't think they can beat Arizona. I don't think they're going to beat Arizona. I don't think they're going to beat New England. I don't think they're going to beat Indianapolis. I don't think they're going to beat we'll probably get the Bengals if they lose this one next week. This team's not making it to the playoffs. I'm sorry. Like, I know this started off as a bashing against the Cleveland Browns, but you know what? What I thought was going to happen with the Cleveland Browns happened. Dorian Thompson-Robinson didn't have to do a damn thing. Just let the running backs do their work. Let the defense do their work. And just when you have to make a critical play, make one critical play, and boom, you're good. And boom, you're going to win the game. I'm frustrated. I think every Steelers fan right now is frustrated right now, but this is just... It's asinine that this team continues to shoot themselves in the foot when it matters the most. It's just like, I can't take it anymore. I really, really cannot take it anymore. Like, I don't know. Like, so yeah, this completely changed from what it started off as, but, let's go ahead and move on to another story. Let's get mad at somebody else for a change. How about Charissa Thompson? Let's see what she did that makes people so upset. So early in the week, Charissa Thompson, if you don't know who she is, she's a sideline. She works for Fox Sports. She also does the Thursday night pregame show on Amazon. She was on the podcast Pardon My Take, and she decided to basically say that she lied when she was making up sideline reports during her time at Fox as a sideline reporter in 2008. And so let me take a look at the story here. Let me see if I can find a good story here to show you what I'm talking about. So here's a story from Awful Announcing. And the story is that fake it till you make it might not be what they teach her in journalism school, but Charissa Thompson has been forced to lean into the aphorism of live television. Sideline reporters have a tough job. They're tasked with getting insight from players and coaches who usually don't want to offer up any information. Thompson, however, has a trick for sideline reporters. If the coach isn't giving you any useful information to repeat on the broadcast, just make something up. Earlier this week, Thompson joined Barstool's Dan Katz, a PFT commenter on Pardon My Take, Barstool Sports. Of course, it's going to be them. If you don't know who they are pretty notorious nowadays, but I digress. But she explained how to give a sideline report when you have nothing to report. She said, I said this before. I haven't been fired for saying it, but I'll say it again. I would make up the report sometimes because, A, the coach wouldn't come out at halftime or it was too late, and I didn't want to script the report. So I was like, I'm just going to make this up. Because, first of all, no coach is going to get mad if I say, hey, we need to stop hurting ourselves. We need to be better on third down. We need to stop turning the ball over and doing a better job of getting off the field. They're not going to correct me on that. So it's like, I'm fine. I'll just make up the report. As Thompson reported, she had discussed this before in her podcast with Aaron Andrews nearly 2 years ago. Thompson and Anderson both admitted to taking liberties with some of their sideline reports, but while Thompson previously alluded to paraphrasing or embellishing what coaches told her this time, she admittedly unambiguously to completely making up a sideline report. Is this a common practice for all sideline reporters? Most coaches don't seem enthused with their in-game media obligations, so they probably don't mind when Thompson or any other side reporter does the work for them. But what about the sideline reporters who haven't had to make up a report? Do they like the fact that the audience will now wonder whether the reports are factual, fabricated, or wholly made up? There's an update here where Amazon responded by saying she was telling a story from 15 years ago. Thompson also apologized and attempted to clarify her remarks in an Instagram post on Friday morning. So what they're talking about is that she was a sideline reporter in 2008, and there's a great video online from official Jaguar Gator 9. If you go, I'll put a link in the corner or at the description below. Go check out the video he did because he actually does a pretty good job of highlighting all the times when she was on the sideline in 2008 and having to make up all these different reports from the sideline. And because of this, she got a lot of backlash from a lot of notable people, most notably Andrea Kramer, who's been a longtime sports reporter for ESPN as well as NBC. Well, before I get to Andrea, some other people, notable sideline reporters, most notably Tracy Wolfson, basically had this to say on social media, saying that this is absolutely not okay, not the norm, and upsetting on so many levels. I take my job very seriously. I hold myself accountable for all I say. I build trust with coaches that never make something up. I know my fellow reporters do the same. Another person that said something, Andrew Marchand of the New York Post Sports Media, said, Charissa Thompson messed up on many levels. 1, making up reports. Pretty self-evident as to why. 2, I get it, PMT is a relaxed environment, but revealing that was an odd choice. 3, all the sideline reporters who do their job correctly look bad as a result. Chris Kirshner of the Athletics basically said, a good portion of the public doesn't trust the media as is. I cannot believe she would proudly admit this. This caused significant harm to the people who actually take their job seriously. It's entirely unethical and worthy of never working in the field again. I'm trying to see if I can find what Andrea Kramer said, because here's another person, Molly McGrath. Young reporters, this is not normal or ethical. Coaches and players trust us with sensitive information, and if they know that you're dishonest and don't take your role seriously, you lose all trust and credibility. So let me see if I can find what Andrea Kramer said, because I know I saw something about what she had to say about that on Deadline, but it's not on here. This is going back over to author announcing. She basically said, where is it? Here we go. I'm sorry for like this dead air and all that. I know I saw the story on Deadline, but for some reason it's not there anymore. I'm seeing if the New York Times will actually let me see this. Okay, here we go. All right, this is from the New York Times. Andrea Kramer, an Emmy-winning sports journalist who has both reported from the sidelines of NFL games and called them from the broadcast booth, described the damage from Thompson's comments as profound. In particular, she said, it harms those working as sideline reporters who are relied on to provide news or things like injury updates during the game and to elicit instant reactions from coach and players. It is a role that centers on establishing trust with both the teams and leagues being covered and with the viewing audience. It is dismissed by some viewers who say the questions asked by players and coaches are often banal, leading to generic answers, and for female sideline reporters that disrespect can often be coupled with the sexist trope that the most important thing they can do on air is look good. The sideline role has always been questioned about its necessity, which I think I've explained to you is erroneous. But I don't remember anyone ever wondering, did they make that up? Now there's that kernel of doubt. Miss Thompson, who's a sideline reporter for Fox for the 2018 through 2010 seasons, is now a host of Fox's NFL pregame and Amazon's Prime's Thursday Night Football game. And they basically talk about what I was talking about before. She eventually did apologize for it, but this is just not something you want to say. Like basically saying that yes, I've lied about what I've had to say because nobody would let me say anything. It's just like, well, lying about it's not going to make it any better for you. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever why you would need to lie about something like that. Like I said, go check out that video that Jaguar Gator did, because he did a pretty good job of analyzing a couple of critical moments where she really did not. Like, you could tell she was stretching the truth on several things that weren't necessarily true. Like, she was talking about how a team has to run the football in the second half, and then the first couple plays you see for them is them passing the football. So, basically, she's not telling the truth on that front. Let alone a couple of other things that happen in there. Plus, the whole thing with Erin Andrews saying that she does that too. They both work for Fox. They're making Fox money, and they're making money outside of things outside of Fox. I think they're more than capable. I think they're more than okay of saying that, yeah, we stretched the truth a little bit, but it's okay. Even if we can fine, we're still making that money from other things that we do. Like, the bottom line with this whole thing is that you don't want to lie to people on something like that. It's just unbelievably stupid to really go out there on a podcast and basically tell people that your job is something where you absolutely have to lie to somebody to actually give you something to do. Like, it doesn't make any sense why you have to lie like that. It's like I try to be as truthful as I can here, but man, like, at times it's not easy. Like, I will admit, I will at least have the audacity to admit when I'm wrong on something. Like a couple weeks ago, when I talked about what happened with Halle Bailey and the story I told you about how the Little Mermaid, there was a thing in her, something apparently where if she's gonna be pregnant right around the time the Oscars happens, if that song gets nominated, she's apparently not allowed to play, performing a musical performance on that front. But turned out that was not true at all. That came from a website that was not official. And if you go to the Disney website, the Disney Awards consideration website, she is still very much in there for the Oscar considerations for not only Best Actress but also Best Original Song, in which she is part of that. But yeah, just don't lie to people, man. Seriously, just like, especially if you're one of those people on television like Charissa Thompson, you're gonna be like, Like, you're going to be seen everywhere, and people are going to look to you to hear what they have to say about these specific different people, these coaches and players on the field. Like, you can't lie to people like that and, like, try to fix your this narrative that you want to put out there. It's just one of the many problems with the NFL in general. Like the NFL, I really don't think they care what the general viewer wants. They care what the NFL wants. Like, they want to believe that everyone wants to see Taylor Swift all over the place. They want to see Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl this year so Taylor Swift can be there. They want the Philadelphia Eagles back in the Super Bowl. They want Kansas City back in the Super Bowl. They want the stories to be about these people that really have nothing to do with the game itself. You can't even trust the game anymore because of the sport, because of the NFL's intentions on getting sports betting services more involved in here. Even when you try to say that the stuff is rigged, you know what the NFL is going to do? Laugh about it. Let's make commercials about the scripts for the 104th season of the NFL. Like, that's the way you want to do it. Completely take one of your biggest faults as a company and just make fun of it. Just pretend like it's not a big deal to anybody else. And where is the fun in watching these football games if you know exactly who's going to win these games or not? And I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent with the NFL. I've had a big problem. I think a lot of people have had a big problem with them for the last couple of years. And just the last couple of years, they haven't even tried to hide it. The Rams, don't even get me started on that gift wrap Super Bowl run they had back in 2021. But yeah, like, bottom line here, just be truthful to people, man. Like, don't go out, and especially don't go on a podcast to basically test your trustworthiness with the companies that you're with. It's just like, come on, okay, I told the truth. Now what are you going to do about it? Because chances are, if you're not careful, you could be out of a job pretty soon if you try to do something like that. But so far, Charissa Thompson still has a job, but we will wait to see what happens there. So we've been very negative so far today. Let's talk about something that's very important to come up here. Something that's at least fun for once. Thanksgiving is coming up. So with Thanksgiving just a couple of days away, we've been doing this for a couple of holidays now. Let's take a look at some classic Thanksgiving commercials. Some notable ones in particular. Nothing too crazy, nothing too spectacular. We're just going to take a look at a couple of them here. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start off with this first one here. So this first one we have here is a commercial for Crescent Rolls by Pillsbury, which came out in 1987. You've got this holiday setting where you've got Grandpa, the kids, and Dad all in the living room, and the mom decides to bring out these Crescent Rolls, and the mom decides to tell her dad, don't touch, now Grandpa, don't you touch these Crescent Rolls right now. And I want you to listen to this guy, the way the guy is saying here, of course I won't. Listen.
I know you, Grandpa. Don't you touch these crescents. Keep your hands off.
Yes, my sweet.
Okay, maybe it's not Thanksgiving. Maybe it's a happy birthday. But the way he says it is just like, yes, my sweet. And he's just giving this look to the camera like, oh, you know exactly what the hell I'm going to do. Like, why would you even ask him not to do that? Because you know exactly what's going to happen next. And so, let's see what happens next.
Pillsbury Crescents.
Like the grandfather is like tiptoeing his feet backwards with the chair rolling in the background. Like I don't know if he's sitting in like a rolling chair or something like that has wheels. Like, how is he able to do this? But yeah, in the background he's moving his legs around, and the mother just gets up and has this look on her face, like he's looking right in like she's looking literally right at the camera, just like, I know exactly what the hell's going on right behind me. And sure enough.
Pillsbury Crescent Rolls.
He caught her. It's just like, yeah, what did you think was going to happen? And of course, we got to fondle the Pillsbury Boys belly button. I'm not even it's like,
I'm leaving. I'm going. Guess there's no point baking Pillsbury's best cookies.
okay, so the basic setup of this next commercial, it's another Pillsbury commercial, and it just starts off with this kid saying, I'm leaving, I'm going, and it's like he's running, is he running away from home? Did the mom say something to him that he didn't like? Did he get in trouble or something like that? Like, the commercial doesn't really set up what's going on here, and, like, he's already having second thoughts about this. As soon as he heard, well, I guess I won't be able to make these Pillsbury chocolate chip cookies for anybody. He's got this look on his face like, Pillsbury chocolate chip cookies? Like it's funny the way this starts off with, but let's keep going.
Cookies?
See, he's like, cookies? Like he's like a drug addict. He's like, hey man, you got those chocolate chip cookies?
You'll never see me again.
It's like he's already having second thoughts about it. He's not even, the way he says that, you'll never see me again. It's not like his face is just like, you'll never see me again. Like he's really that mad. He's just kind of like, he's just doing this for attention pretty much. Like his eye movements do not match his actual, the thing that's coming out of his mouth right now.
I mean it.
He's like getting so deflated by this idea of running away, and just like, oh man, those chocolate chip cookies, man. Like, it says it bakes in 11 minutes too, so he had 11 minutes between the time she said, I'm gonna make these cookies, and these cookies actually getting made to decide whether or not he ran away from home. Like, he could have watched a half of an episode of Rugrats, like, in that time period to really contemplate his decisions on his next moves. And it's just like, I don't know, like, oh, what a shocker. He decides to
I
stay.
miss my plane.
It's like, he said something about, like, I miss my plane. Like, where was the plane? When did you even talk about a plane? Like, what the hell are you even talking about? Like, like, it's a stupid commercial, but it works for what it is. So yeah, on to the next one.
What towers over Manhattan fits into a shopping bag and is only at Macy's?
A lot of stuff that you probably don't even realize. Like, I don't even know what the hell I'm going with that. It's a commercial for Macy's. Basically, commercial for Macy's from 1987. I'm sorry about that, by the way. I thought I had something, but I didn't. But this is a commercial for Macy's back in the I think it was 87. They're talking about the Snoopy plush that they were giving away. Macy's doesn't do this anymore, unfortunately. They did this for a couple of years back in the 2000s and in the 2010s, but I don't think they really do this as much anymore. Like, you have these offers where you can get these plushes for like a specific price here. Let's see what they're asking for Snoopy.
Snoopy. He's cuddly. He's playful. And he's yours at all Macy's. A $32 value. Yours for just $10.95.
It's a $32 value is all yours for $10. I think they're about to tell you how much you had to pay to get them.
Any $50 purchase.
So you basically had to spend $50 to get this for $10, or just go ahead and buy it for $32. I mean, really, I don't usually go into Macy's and get a lot of clothes per se, mostly because they don't really have a huge selection of like clothes for like. They don't usually have a big lot of like graphic tees and all that. They do have like sports clothes, a lot of Pittsburgh sports clothes, at least in the Macy's that I've had. I'm sure a lot of other Macy's have that as well, But yeah, the whole idea is that you spend $50, you get this for $10, or just go and buy it for $33 if you really want it that much. Just get it for $33. But I mean, what do I know? Like I said, I don't shop at Macy's all that much, unfortunately.
Or more.
By the way, this plush does not look that. Like, I'm looking at this plush right now, and it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to. Like, I thought if you see a Snoopy plush nowadays, then again, times change so much. Like, I was just at a thrift store earlier today, and I saw all these different Bugs Bunny plushes from like the different time periods. There was one from the 1970s that does not look like what a Bugs Bunny plush would look like in nowadays. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to add some conversation to this. I mean, the more I look at it now, it does look more like what I expect to see from a Snoopy Macy's plush toy. Man, Hills used to be a place I used to remember going to a lot as a kid. It was really fun seeing these commercials again. Like, Hills used to be like the big place to go to. Hills, Ames, Farmore. I mean, these are places that are sadly no longer around. But I mean, now Kmart, I guess you could consider that part of that list as well. But Hills used to be a great place. I mean, here around Pittsburgh, they remember the Hills so much. They actually make candles at specific places that smell like the Hills snack bars. Like, you open it up and it literally smells like what Hills pretzels used to smell like, Hills popcorn, all that type of stuff, hot dogs, all that. Like, Like, that's how you know that Hills had a lasting legacy around here and a lot of other places as well, when people are making candles based off the smell of what the snack bar smelled like.
Here in Legoland, Futuron is new.
I love how they also have this person that looks like Santa's elf. I'm guessing it's a kid, but because the image here is so distorted, it looks like an older midget, kind of like that. They're not doing a really good job of showing you the close-up face of this kid, which I'm assuming it's a kid, but from this distorted face on here, it looks like it's an older guy, and it looks like an older midget, honestly, the more I look at it.
If you like to build, this toy's for you. Hills has everything from Lego. Fun for girls and boys. The entire selection of Lego construction toys. Lots of toys every day.
Ah, the power of layaway. I don't think a lot of stores don't have layaway anymore. Like, I think they got rid of that a while ago at most places. I don't know if they still do. I don't know if they still do have it at some places. I think maybe Target does. I think Walmart too. But I thought layaway kind of got replaced over with mobile ordering. But then again, I don't really know for certain. But if anyone does know, let me know.
Another reason why they say Hills is where the toys are.
Is, again, not a whole lot there, just in terms of like anything too crazy like some of the Halloween commercials we've looked at, or especially the poorly aged commercials from the 90s, but a couple commercials of noteworthiness from this little compilation I found that I wanted to kind of talk about here. But let's talk about a commercial that's going to be coming. Actually, I don't think that, now that I think about it, this commercial hasn't aired for a couple of years now, and I'm starting to see why that is. I'm going to talk about that next. So this is a commercial that used to be on TV a lot. Like, there was a number of years when this was on television in various ways, shapes, and forms, but sadly has not been on television for a number of years now. But you probably have seen this commercial before, and this is a commercial that basically, it's a simple premise. You have a story of the snowman that is in the snow, comes to life, and goes into the house, and there's a bowl of Campbell soup waiting for him. And I think you know where this is going, but let's go ahead and play the commercial, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll say this, though. It starts off looking like a real snowman, like it's actually there, which I'm actually really impressed by that. This was 1993, and we were still kind of figuring out what to do with computers in terms of like practical effects in general, but they did a pretty good job with the practical effects on this, I'm not gonna lie. So let's keep it going. Like, I love the fact that the snowman just walks into this house and doesn't start melting right away. Like, it takes a while for him to start actually melting. Like, he's putting his like cap on the thing and on the hangers, as well as his scarf. Somebody's just put a thing of Campbell soup in front of the snowman, smiles, and then just as slowly but surely, this happens.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Nothing melts away the cold like a delicious hot bowl of Campbell soup. Let it snow, let it snow. Campbell.
So basically what happens is that the snowman is actually a kid that has been out in the cold for a number of hours, and I don't know what the hell happened. I don't know if some bullies came around and made a snowman out of him. I don't know if he's especially challenged or mentally challenged and just decided to go to build himself a snowman igloo, or I guess for him to be inside. Like, how does this even work? Like, it makes no sense when you really look at it and really analyze this. Like, for example, when he gets the Campbell soup, he's got the stick hands. But as he's melting, all of a sudden the stick hands disappear, and he's got normal hands now. It's just like none of this makes any sense, but none makes the most important sense is that how long was this kid sitting out in the freaking snow to have this happen to him? Like, any other person who's out there longer than this freaking kid would be dead or frozen dead. Like they look like Homer at the end of the Shining parody, or even Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining. Like, he's just sitting in the snow with this look on his face. But like, the part that gets me all the time though is the fact that he's got the spoon while he has the stick hands, and I'll show you that right here. Like, you could see, like, he literally has he's literally holding the spoon while he's got the stick hands. But watch as he starts melting.
Snow, let it snow, let it snow. Nothing.
All of a sudden, his hands are back to normal now. So where the hell did his hands come from? Where did the sticks go? Like the sticks disappear too. Like, you still see the snow on the ground. In fact, where does the carrot go? Where does the coal go? Like, where does all this stuff go? Whenever this happens, it's like it makes no sense whatsoever. But
Like a delicious hot
like,
bowl of Campbell soup. Let it snow, let it snow.
and this kid's got this look on his face like, how long was I sitting out in the snow to be in this situation? Like, he's got this look on his face like, oh, thank God I have something hot in my mouth. But seriously, how long have I been out there? It's just like, it's ridiculous. It's so insane and so crazy how this whole thing panned out. It's just like it doesn't make any sense. Like, how long was this kid sitting out in the snow like that? And how many kids actually tried to do this and realized that they couldn't because they would get frostbite? But then again, I think Nostalgia Critic kind of summed up this commercial pretty well a couple of years ago when he did it in his commercial special, where you'd be asking the same questions, too, about the situation. Like, he's basically talking about this commercial, and it's literally followed by a skit where he's playing this dad, and Tamra is playing this kid who's frozen cold in the snow, and she's got this continuous look on her face, like she's been frozen out there for a number of hours, and she's probably dead. And every time he's trying to get the stuff off her, like her gloves fall, like her arm rips off. And like, he's just like, why don't I make you some Campbell soup? And then they mix the Campbell soup, and then as soon as the soup is right in front of her, her face is like, she's like dead face down in the soup, and he realizes, oh crap, and he just starts running away. Like, it's a really funny bit, and it's a perfect sum up of what anybody probably would think of when they think of think of this commercial in real life. Like, what are the real ramifications of the situation overall? Like, how did this come to be? Like, it's a classic commercial, don't get me wrong, but yeah, needless to say, that's just don't I think they summed it up very well here. Don't try this at home. Classic commercial all around, but seriously, do not try this at home. The police will be right at your doorstep, unless you're pretty good at hiding bodies, and even then, they'll probably still find you regardless. But with that said, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover this week. So let's go ahead and get into some recommendations. Of course, obviously, the big new release coming out on home media is Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's film about the creation of the atom bomb, and Cillian Murphy giving a phenomenal performance as J. Robert Oppenheimer. To me, this is the front runner for Best Picture right now. I think this is the one that's finally going to give Christopher Nolan the Oscar he long deserves. I think a lot of people are going to get some Oscars from this. Cillian Murphy, I think, is going to be very much a contention for Best Actor. Robert Downey Jr. probably going to be for Best Supporting Actor. If you haven't seen the movie in theaters when it came out, you have really no excuse to not see this film, because you're missing out on one of the best films of the year. Easily, no question about it. So that's the big new release. But of course, we got Thanksgiving coming up. And how about some Thanksgiving recommendations, which surprisingly there is not a lot of. There's a couple of underground movies, underrated films like Home for the Holidays, Family Stone, Nothing Like the Holidays, Dan in Real Life. But I gotta go. In terms of the quintessential, the two big Thanksgiving classics I have to watch every year, Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. Gotta do it because it's the Charlie Brown gang. It's a great special where Charlie Brown basically has to create his own Thanksgiving dinner with stuff around the house, and instead of like a turkey and all that, it's like popcorn, pizzas, pretzels, candy, all that type of stuff. Like, basically a fun Thanksgiving on a lot of people's rights, but mostly he's doing this because Peppermint Patty pretty much just says, hey, I'm coming over for Thanksgiving dinner, so you better have something ready for me and Marcy, who just showed up randomly, and also Franklin, who just showed up randomly as well, so get cooking. And when she actually eats the food, her reaction is just hilarious. It's like, what kind of a Thanksgiving dinner is this? It's like, bitch, you're the one that called him at the last minute to make a Thanksgiving dinner. Like, it's a great special. I love it so much, but man, you will hate Peppermint Patty when you watch that special. And of course, I got to talk about my the must-see movie that I have to go watch every year. One of my favorite movies of all time, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Steve Martin, John Candy, basically trying to get back to Chicago for Thanksgiving and going through all these chaotic adventures and classic moments all around. Just I really want to go more into it, but I'm going to be doing a favorite segment for the Reviewing Network Talks About It coming up pretty soon, because that is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a film I love so much. Probably the best movie John Hughes has ever directed, in my personal opinion. It's one I really love so much. It basically shows you the potential that Steve Martin and John Candy have, not just as great comedians, but also as great dramatic actors as well. Both of them are really giving amazing performances in that movie. You need to watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Charlie Brown Thanksgiving this year. Those are my big Thanksgiving recommendations. So, with that said, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. One more thing I should say before we get on out of here. I mentioned this in a video on the main channel. On Sunday, November 26th, next Sunday, we're going to have this is the newest episode of the Reviewing Network Live is going to be streaming, not really streaming, but it's going to be available on the main Reviewing Network YouTube channel. We're going to have it over there as a free preview for the people that have not been able to see this channel to come and see what we've been doing here the last couple of weeks. And we're going to be doing a couple of these over the next couple of months. I have one planned for Christmas Eve that I'm going to be doing. I think I might be doing one for my birthday as well, coming up in January, and as well as some other times as well. But so next Sunday, if you want to see the newest episode of the Reviewing Network Live, you're gonna have to go over to the Reviewing Network YouTube channel to check that out, because that's where it's going to be for the special free preview episode. So I'll try to have a link for it over here on the main channel as well, so, on this channel here as well. So if you haven't been to the other channel yet, which really I think people should be coming over from that channel to this channel at some point anyway, so hopefully that's the case there. But either way, if it's not here by this time next week, it'll be over on the main channel next week as well. But I'll have a link to it on this channel as well, so you can go check it out there. But so that's going to be next week. But until then, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw and you like what we're doing here, check out the playlist on this page here. Subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. I will see you guys next week. So, until then, thank you for watching, and with that said, we are out.